Hey, Larry Hopkins with you here again. We're in lesson 73, 2 Kings, chapters 7 and 8. I'm glad to be here with you again today. I just want to tell you how much fun we've had here in the studio. I've kind of titled this Elijah to the Rescue. So once again, he's going to jump in and do some saving. So then Elijah said, "Listen to the word of the Lord. Thus he says, tomorrow about this time, a measure of fine flour will be sold for a shekel, and 2 measures of barley for a shekel in the gate of Samaria." Now, if you'll recall from 2 Kings 6, Samaria was under siege. The Arameans were pressing in on them, and they were stuck. They were without food. The king was walking on the wall, and he heard the story of the woman who made a deal with a neighbor woman that said, today we will boil my son and eat him, and tomorrow we'll boil your son and eat him. And the second lady declined to offer her son and went and hid him, and it was totally abhorring to the king of Israel. And so here's where we find ourselves. Let's go on to verse number 2. The royal officer on whose hand the king was leaning answered the man of God and said, "Behold, if the Lord should make the windows of heaven open, could this thing be?" Then he said, "Behold, you will see it with your own eyes, but you will not eat it." That's Elijah talking to this servant. Now there were 4 leprous men at the entrance of the gate, and they said to one another, "Why do we sit here until we die? If we say we will enter the city, then the famine is in the city and we'll die there. And if we sit here, we're going to die." It's like, what do they have to lose? "Now therefore come, and let's go over to the camp of the Arameans. If they spare us, we will live. If they kill us, we will but die." And they arose at twilight to go to the camp of the Arameans. And when they came to the outskirts of the camp, behold, there was no one there. For the Lord had caused the army of the Arameans to hear sounds of chariots and a sound of horses, even the sound of a great army, so that they said to one another, "Behold, the king of Israel has hired against us the kings of the Hittites and of the kings of the Egyptians to come upon us." Therefore they arose and fled in the twilight and left their tents and their horses and their donkeys, even the camp, just as it was, and fled for their life. And when these lepers came to the outskirts of the camp, they entered one tent and ate and drank and carried from their silver and gold and clothes and went and hid them. And they returned and entered another tent. Here we go. And carried from there also and went and hid them. Then they said to one another, "We are not doing right. This day is a day of good news, but we are keeping it silent. If we wait until morning light, punishment will overtake us. Now, therefore, come and let us go tell the king's household." So they came and they called to the gatekeepers of the city, and they told him, saying, "Hey, we have gone into the camp of the Arameans, and behold, there was no one there, nor the voice of a man, only the horses tied and the donkeys tied, and the tents just as they were." I tell you what, this is just such a great story. And I read it, I just identified with it immediately. You know, as Christians, this is our story. We are just like these sinful lepers outside of the gates of the city. We're sick and starving. Over there is God's camp with His provision. Deserving death for our rebellion against God, we humbly stumbled into the heart of the camp, into the presence of God. And instead of finding death and bondage, we found grace. We found life. We ate and drank of the goodness of God. We discovered great treasures, and we took them and we hid them in our hearts. We have a great responsibility. The camp of Israel is right there. They're dying, and we have the answers. Kevin, if you would go to Psalm 34:8. Oh, taste and see that the Lord is good. How blessed is the man who takes refuge in him. Revelation 3:17. Because you say, I am rich and have become wealthy and have need of nothing, and you do not know that you are wretched and miserable and poor and blind and naked. And so that's the state of Israel today. They are in need of a Savior. And we have that message. And we need to be sure that we are willing to go out and to share with those who do not know. Continuing on with the story, the gatekeepers called and told it within the king's household. Then the king arose in the night and said to his servants, I will now tell you what the Arameans have done to us. They know we are hungry. Therefore, they have gone from the camp to hide themselves in the field, saying, when they come out of the city, we will capture them alive and get into the city. One of his servants said, please let some men take 5 horses which remain, which are left in the city. Behold, they will be in any case like all the multitude of Israel who are left in it. In other words, these horses would be consumed at some point as well by the starving people. Much of the city has already perished, so let us send and see. They took therefore 2 chariots with horses, and the king sent after the army of the Arameans, saying, go and see. They went after them to the Jordan, and behold, all the way was full of clothes and equipment all the Arameans had thrown away in their haste. Then the messengers returned and told the king. So the people went out and plundered the camp of the Arameans. Then a measure of fine flour was sold for a shekel, and 2 measures of barley for a shekel, according to the word of the Lord. Now the king appointed the royal officer on whose hand he had leaned to have charge on the gate, but the people trampled him at the gate, and he died, just as the man of God had said, who spoke when the king came down to him. It happened just as the man of God had spoken to the king, saying, 2 measures of barley for a shekel and a measure of fine flour for a shekel will be sold about this time at the gate of Samaria. So once again, this is a story of salvation that Elisha was able to bring to the nation of Israel. It seems like a recurring theme over and over that the Israelites screw up, Elisha comes in and saves the day, and so we're continuing that trend.
It seemed really indirect even. It's neat to see God's hand taking the Arameans and confusing them. And Elijah just prophesies for it for the most part and then watches it.
You're right. And I think we had just seen that before with Gehazi and Elisha, where he had the armies of the Lord and chariots of fire there when the foreign army came in to look for Elisha. And he led them to Samaria before the king. And what a story of grace there, that rather than killing the army, they prepared a feast before them. And I think we can learn some lessons there about how gracious our God is and not giving us the death that we deserve, but just allowing grace. So I want you to remember back to the story of the Shunammite woman whose son had died. Elijah went up to the upper room and laid himself out on the child twice. And the child sneezed 7 times and came back to life. Okay, this is the same lady. So in 8:1, now Elisha spoke to the woman whose son had been restored to life, saying, arise and go with your household and sojourn wherever you can, for the Lord has called for a famine, and it will even come on the land for 7 years. So my thought here is that in order to pack up everything you have and move away to prepare for this famine, it requires a certain degree of humility. I mean, what if your neighbor came to you and said, hey, there's going to be a famine in the land. You need to pack your household up, pack your kids up. You need to go out to New Mexico and you need to hide out for a few years. I mean, it would take a great deal of faith and humility to do that. But this woman had a special relationship with Elisha. I mean, Elisha would stay in her upper room when he came through town. He had prophesied that she would have a child. He restored that child back to life after he died. And so there was a degree of relationship here and a degree of trust. And so she does pick up her things and they go to the land of the Philistines, and she stays there for 7 years. Now it's interesting, this concept of a 7-year famine. I mean, just the number 7. We learned yesterday how Naaman was told to go dip in the Jordan 7 times. I mean, there just seems to be something about completion in that number. It's a complete healing when you dip yourself 7 times. A 7-year famine is maybe a full 7 years of discipline or cleansing. You think back to Joseph in Genesis, and he prophesied that there would be 7 years of, if you will, feast, and then 7 years of famine. And it came about. So if we go to Genesis 41:17, we'll just kind of recount that story here. So Pharaoh spoke to Joseph, in my dream, behold, I was standing on the bank of the Nile. And behold, 7 cows, fat and sleek, came up out of the Nile, and they grazed in the marsh grass. Lo, 7 other cows came up after them, poor and ugly and gaunt, such as I had never seen for ugliness in all the land of Egypt. And the lean and ugly cows ate up the first 7 fat cows. Yet when they had devoured them, it could not be detected that they had devoured them, for they were just as ugly as before. Then I awoke. I also saw in my dream, and behold, 7 ears, full and good, came up on a single stalk. And lo, 7 ears withered thin and scorched by the east wind, sprouted up after them. And the thin ears swallowed up the 7 good ears. Then I told it to the magicians, but there was no one who could explain it to me. Now Joseph said to Pharaoh, Pharaoh's dreams are one and the same. God has told to Pharaoh what he is about to do. The 7 good cows are 7 years, and the 7 good ears are 7 years. The dreams are one and the same. The 7 lean and ugly cows that came up after them are 7 years, and the 7 thin ears scorched by the east wind will be 7 years of famine. The 7, it is as I have spoken to Pharaoh. God has shown to Pharaoh what he is about to do. Behold, 7 years of great abundance are coming in all the land of Egypt. And after them 7 years of famine will come, and all the abundance will be forgotten in the land of Egypt, and the famine will ravage the land. So we have this completion. We have this complete 7-year cycle, a 7-year cycle of preparation, of storing up and getting ready for the famine that's coming. And then we have the playing out of the actual famine, which consumed all of the resources of the previous 7. So back to verse 2. The woman arose and did according to the word of the man of God. She went with her household and sojourned in the land of the Philistines 7 years. At the end of 7 years, the woman returned from the land of Philistines. She went out to appeal to the king for her house and for her field. Now the king was talking with Gehazi. What a coincidence. The servant of the man of God saying, please reiterate to me all the great things that Elisha has done. As he was relating to the king how he had restored to life the one who is dead, behold, the woman whose son he had restored to life appealed to the king for her house and her field. And Gehazi said, O Lord, my king, this is the woman, and this is her son whom Elisha restored to life. Once again, is this another coincidence that she just happened to come in when they were talking about that? I tell you, I don't believe in coincidences. What I believe in are divine appointments. And I think that it was divinely appointed for her to come in at this moment so that she could confirm the story. When the king asked the woman, she related it to him, and the king appointed for her a certain officer, saying, "Restore all that was hers and all the produce of the field from the day she left the land, even until now." So that's the end of that story, and we are going to move on to a new scene. Then Elisha came to Damascus. Now Ben-Hadad, king of Aram, was sick, and it was told to him, saying, "The man of God has come here." The king said to Hazael, "Take a gift in your hand and go to meet the man of God and inquire of the Lord by saying, 'Will I recover from the sickness?'" So Hazael went to meet him and took his gift in his hand, even every good thing from Damascus, 40 camel loads. And he came and stood before him and said, "Your son, Ben-Hadad, king of Aram, has sent me to you, saying, 'Will I recover from this sickness?'" Then Elisha said to him, "Go and say, 'You will surely recover, but the Lord has shown me that he will certainly die.'" You know, this is not the first time that God has sent a deceiving spirit in order to accomplish his purposes. I think we just learned about that. Let's go back to Kings chapter 2, verse 20 through 22. 1 Kings 22, 20 through 22. The Lord said, "Who will entice Ahab to go up and fall at Ramoth Gilead?" And one said this, while another said that. Then a spirit came forward and stood before the Lord and said, "I will entice him." The Lord said to him, "How?" And he said, "I will go out and be a deceiving spirit in the mouth of all his prophets." And he said, "You two are to entice him and also prevail. Go and do so." So again, this is another example of God sending a lying spirit out in order to accomplish his goals. And so Hazael just stares back at Elijah as like, "I can't believe this. I can't believe that you're going to lie to my master." And he continued to stare at him at a point until he became uncomfortable. And then in verse 12, Hazael said, "Why does my Lord weep?" Then he answered, "Because I know the evil you will do to the sons of Israel. Their strongholds you will set on fire, and their young men you will kill with the sword, and their little ones you will dash to pieces, and their woman with child you will rip up." Then Hazael said, "But what is your servant, who is but a dog, that he should do this great thing?" And Elisha answered, "The Lord has shown me that you will be king over Aram." Did this prophecy from Elisha entice Hazael to go kill his master? It could be, because there's no indication that he had any plans to be king prior to that. He seemed pretty humble in his position. So in verse 14, he departed from Elijah and returned to his master and said, "What did Elijah say to you?" And he answered, "He told me that you would surely recover." On the following day, he took the cover, dipped it in water, and spread it on his face so that he died. And Hazael became king in his place. So the prophecy was fulfilled.
It didn't take long.
Did not take long. I think Ryan may pick up on this story tomorrow, possibly when we get back to Jehu and some of his dealings with Hazael. So in the 5th year of Jehoram, king of Ahab, son of King Ahab of Israel, Jehoshaphat then being king of Judah, Jehoram, the son of Jehoshaphat, king of Judah, became king. Now you talk about confusing. We got 2 kings with the same name. Kevin, you ever think they got their mail mixed up? Hey, will you go with me to fight against Oh, wait, that's wrong.
You start like looking at genealogies and stuff through this, and you're like, but I thought he was over here, and it's,
Yeah.
nope, he's there. Whoa, there's two guys.
It is kind of crazy. So I'm going to continue over here with my genealogy a little bit that we started last week. I think I got it back up to where it was. And if you remember, Jezebel and Ahab also had a daughter, and her name was Athaliah. All right. The other thing that really has not been talked about too much is Jezebel was the daughter of the king of Sidon. So you've got the influence of the Sidonians working through Jezebel. Now you've got Athaliah, who is their daughter. And let me see what color I want to do this in. So you've got Jehoshaphat, and we do not know who his queen was or whoever his concubine was at this time, but they also have this son named Jehoram. What I want to point out now is that Jehoram and Athaliah together have a son, and they name him after his deceased uncle. He may not have been deceased at the time he was named, but Ahaziah, or Hazael, as you speak up north. So what I'm seeing here is the king of Sidon basically reaching down through Israel and reaching all the way down to the heart of Judah and Jerusalem and having a great influence. Now, the other thing that we really haven't taken into account either is the fact that Jezebel's still alive. She is, even though Ahab is off the scene, she's still alive, and we know based on her personality, she was probably very involved in the politics of her son, of her daughter, of her son-in-law, king of Judah. And there's going to be a point coming up, this is a little spoiler alert, that Ahaziah is going to die, and Athaliah is going to kill all the royal offspring and actually rule as queen over Judah for 6 years. Now, how many of you knew that there was a queen in the lineage of basically David's dynasty? Crazy. So back in verse 17, Jehoram was 32 years old when he became king, and he reigned 8 years in Jerusalem. He walked in the way of the kings of Israel, so he's crossed over here in his beliefs, just as the house of Ahab had done. For the daughter of Ahab became his wife, and he did evil in the sight of the Lord. Now, I just find this next verse just so amazing. However, the Lord was not willing to destroy Judah for the sake of David, his servant, since he had promised him to give him a lamp to him through his sons always.
Kind of goes back to the theme, Larry, about the surviving seed.
It does. And that, we certainly learned about that when we were talking about Benjamin and all the Benjamites getting wiped out and trying to restore that seed so that the entire tribe would not be wiped out. I do want to hit back here, though, on Jezebel just a little bit more. I'd like to go to Deuteronomy 7:3 through 4. We don't have much time left here, but Kevin, if you could go there. Furthermore, you shall not intermarry with them. You shall not give your daughters to their sons, nor shall you take their daughters for your sons. For they will turn your sons away from following me to serve other gods. Then the anger of the Lord will be kindled against you, and he will quickly destroy you. So, I got to admit that this verse is specifically dealing with 7 nations that are living in the land of Israel at the time that the Israelites are getting ready to come in as a nation and take over the land. But I think that principle carries on. And I think we see that with Jezebel. I think that Ahab was a wicked king. I don't think he was near as wicked as once Jezebel came on the scene. I'm hearing things on the news today about the fixer that goes around behind the president taking care of things. And I think Jezebel was King Ahab's fixer. I mean, if something wasn't going his way and he'd kind of come whining to her, he'd say, "Shut up, I'll take care of this." And she'd go whack whoever needed to be whacked. And, she got things done. And I think that continues on. Let's go to the New Testament verses of 2 Corinthians 6:14. And I think that's how we can carry this further, which we've done before. "Do not be bound together with unbelievers. For what partnership have righteousness and lawlessness? Or what fellowship has light with darkness?" Kevin, you can go back to verse 20. "In his days, Edom revolted from under the hand of Judah and made a king over themselves." Now this is interesting. If you remember back from 2 Kings chapter 3, they had a king because the king of Judah, the king of Israel, and the king of Edom all went to war against the Moabites. So some point in there, I guess they lost their king. Verse 21, "Then Jehoram crossed over into Zaire, and all his chariots with him. And he arose by night and struck the Edomites who had surrounded him and the captains of the chariots. But his army fled to their tents. So Edom revolted against Judah to this day. Then Libnah revolted at the same time." The rest of the acts of Joram and all that he did, are they not written in the book of the Chronicles of the kings of Judah? So Joram slept with his fathers and was buried with his fathers in the city of David. And Hazael, his son, became king in his place. Next. "In the 12th year of Jehoram, the son of King Ahab of Israel, Ahaziah, son of Jehoram, king of Judah, began to reign. Ahaziah was 22 years old when he became king, and he reigned for 1 year in Jerusalem. And his mother's name was Athaliah, the granddaughter of Omri, king of Israel. He walked in the way of the house of Ahab and did evil in the sight of the Lord, like the house of Ahab had done, because he was the son-in-law of the house of Ahab. Then he went to Joram, son of Ahab, to war against Hazael, king of Aram, at Ramoth Gilead, and the Arameans wounded Joram. So King Joram returned to be healed in Jezreel of the wounds which the Arameans had inflicted on him at Ramah when he fought against Hazael, king of Aram. Then Ahaziah, son of Jehoram, king of Judah, went down to see Joram, the son of Ahab, in Jezreel because he was sick. So my summary of this is Jehoram went home to Mama. She lived in Jezreel, and he went home so that Jezebel could nurse him back to health. I don't think that's what happened. Thank you.